Hey foodie, Chef Tiki here, and today on Tiki's Tidbit, we're talking greens, beans, potatoes, tomato. Okay, we're not tomatoes, but we are talking Thanksgiving. Shout out to Miss Shirley Caesar for that song. But I got 4 requests, and they're all related around Thanksgiving. And the 4th one, we're just gonna fit that in because people do eat variations of meat. So today we are talking greens, we're talking beans, we're talking sweet potatoes, and we're talking salmon. All right. So I know for me that Thanksgiving isn't Thanksgiving without fresh collard greens. And for those of you who are going to open up a can of collard greens, have at it. You doctor them up the best way that you know how, because everyone doesn't have time to cut fresh collard greens and to prepare them. But on Thanksgiving, I got time. And so I want to share you how to prepare these collard greens, the recipes that you're going to use and the flavor profiles that you're going to use. I'm going to leave that up to you this time because we're not going into depth, but we're just talking preparation for collard greens. So I was able to pick these up today, just a small little bushel at Buy High / Buy Low. And so I got these and I thought, okay, we're gonna show you with these collard greens here. All right, so they have a stem, and they come in a bushel, which people who do this, you already know this. But the thing that I have seen before and that has made me question the cooks in the kitchen is when I see this stem in the pot. Don't do that. So I want to show you today, real simple, real easy. I've already started a small stack here. What you're going to do is you're going to look at this rib, and this whole rib is, you can eat it if you want. If you really want to eat it, don't eat it. Just go backwards is what I do, is opposite way, and I break the leaf along the stem. And yes, this is a little time consuming, but it's fresh collard greens. Depending on if you live in the north or the south, fall and winter are great harvest times for collard greens. So that means they're fresh. Get them while they're fresh and enjoy them. I'm gonna even keep that piece because we're not gonna waste that good collard. But this should be the end result of your de-stemming process. So this whole rib is garbage, not flavor, not it just happened to make it in the pot, not it ain't gonna hurt nothing. This is trash. Throw this in the trash, please. All right, so you'll do this whole de-stemming process. Sometimes when you're looking through here, you'll find a raspberry boo. Oh, I'm sorry. You guys, you might find some leaves with holes in them. The way those holes got there is because someone was in the grocery store and they took a cigarette and then they just made, I play too much. So the holes come from either some insect or an animal when these were growing. And I typically, when I see these, I just trash it. It may be like 4 or 5 leaves. It's not a big deal. You're more than welcome to have at the other side if you like. I typically just throw the whole thing in the trash, or I might play cops and robbers with my husband tonight. I don't know. But no, seriously, throw this in the trash. It's okay. It's like a whole lot of more leaves right here. And normally, don't you buy at least 5 to 6 bushels of leaves and you can't throw away a couple? Sure you can. Throw those away. Again, I'm going to show you this de-stemming process. Opposite way that they grow. You even hear the snap. That lets you know you're breaking it here. And you're going to de-stem this all the way to the end. Boom, there you go. So once you've done that, I'm going to set this aside. And you're going to have several halves here that you have. What I usually do to give you a side view here is I just roll them I don't know what you're thinking about as I'm rolling, but I'm thinking about collard greens. So I roll that, and then I just take my chef knife, and proper term here is chiffonade, but I do that, and then this is what I'm actually going to cook. However, this does not go from the cutting board to the pot. It now goes into a colander for you to strain, to wash and strain, okay? So I don't care if they say washed, pre-washed, triple wash. If they're fresh, they probably were rinsed, or just some water from the grocery store was sprinkled on there just to keep the leaves moist and fresh. No, it's your job at this point to go in and wash these greens, okay? Then you flavor them up with whatever you want. If you want neck bones, ham, hot, smoked turkey necks, I don't know. I ain't judging. Either way, do what you want to do. All right, so there are your greens. Now, for the beans. And this question is going, the response for the question is for Miss B, who said, hey, do we need to soak our beans? How do we cook beans? Great question, because it is fall time, even though it feels like here it went from straight summer to winter, but it is fall and it's going into the winter, and beans are phenomenally cheap and they're great to eat, high in protein, low in cholesterol, absolutely no cholesterol. And what a better way to stretch budget and get great flavor out of it. So the deal with beans, should you soak them? Absolutely. Beans, dried beans do require soaking, period, point blank. Pre-soaking, I do it. They require at least 8 up to 24 hours of soaking if you have the time. Typically, you know if you want beans, right? And if you're doing dried beans, if you do can, that's your thing. But if you know you want to make your own beans and you want to control the sodium in your beans, then that means you're kind of thinking that thing out and you're a little bit proactive. So what we're going to do is keep in mind that the reason we're soaking is because beans are complex carbs, and we want to not only break down some of those sugars and the complex carbs so that they are digestible, you got it, you know what I'm saying, so we can digest them. Also, we want to make sure that they hydrate, right? So they cook evenly and in a decent amount of time. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna sift through your beans. I think I'm gonna do the white one just because you can see it on this black apron, yeah. So you're gonna sift through. Remember that beans also grow in soil, so you may find rocks or dirt in your beans. Another indicator that you gotta wash them, right? So you sift through here, pull out all your bad beans. Once you found all the bad beans, and bad beans are typically anything that's cracked or chipped, I throw those away because they're beans. They cost what, 5 cents? Yeah, throw those away. And then I put them in a bowl, and then I submerge them in water. Make sure it's completely covered, plus some, because they're going to soak up water while they're hydrating overnight, 8 to 12 hours, 8 to 24 hours, depending on how long you want to do that. Put a lid on it, throw it in the refrigerator, or leave them on the counter. That's what I do, so everything stays room temperature, and then you're done. So those were white Great Northern beans. If you like red beans, black eyed peas, y'all know New Year's is coming up. Y'all got y'all New Year's black eyed peas. Y'all don't want to eat those. My favorite are the split pea, lentil beans, and yellow bean mix. These don't require as much soaking because they're so small, but I still soak them anyway just because it's just habit. So not the end of the world if you don't soak the little baby beans, but the larger beans you definitely want to go and give a soak. So once you're done soaking those beans, you do when you soak your beans and you add the water, you do want to also add salt to the water. And I add a lot of salt because salt helps the hydration process of the beans, because the beans are going to swell up because they're being hydrated, but you don't want the beans to bust. You don't want the skins to bust before you even cook them. So if you add salt, salt helps with the skins to stay with elasticity on them, and then they can swell without popping the skins. The skins will eventually break once you're cooking them, but you don't want that to happen prior to. Make sure after the soaking process is done, you do wash all of the salt solution, the soaking solution that you were using, you wash that all away, and then you put fresh water into the pot. And however you're cooking the beans, whether it be a pressure cooker or just a big pot on the stove or a crock pot, however you choose to do your beans and however you choose to flavor them. So that's it for the beans. So we got the greens, we got the beans, now we got the potatoes. So Thanksgiving is sweet potato pie, right? Sweet potato pie or patty. I'm done playing today, y'all. I'm gonna be for real. Anyway, so the sweet potato, I baked this earlier today. And what you'll care to notice is that nature does a really good job in talking to us via food, right? So this sweet potato shows you, I'm just gonna cut it open here so you can see exactly what I'm talking about. Just half of it. You can see these strings that go down. You ever, you see that, the grains that are going down? You ever bit into, this is exactly what I'm talking about, these long strings right here. It's just how it happens when you cook them. You ever bit into a pie or something and the mouthfeel on it was just awful? You could feel those strings in your mouth. That's simply because the person who prepared that pie didn't do this. And it's not that it's completely wrong, but it definitely helps. So with those grains going long ways down, what you want to do is cut against the grain. When you cut against the grain, so the grains go up and down this long way, you want to cut horizontally against the grains because that's going to shorten those fibers in the sweet potato. And so now instead of getting those long stringy fibers in the sweet potatoes, you've basically cut them down and you can have a smooth, creamy sweet potato pie. All right, so do right by the food. Pay attention. It tells you what's going on. Cut the opposite way against the grain and you'll have a great sweet potato pie or sweet potato souffle. All right, so that's that. Now might get a little louder in here because I'm going to show Pam, and also this is for Mr. Cobb, who wanted to know about, Pam wanted to know about salmon and Mr. Cobb wanted to know about keeping meat moist the next day. The only thing I can say about keeping meat moist is that typically it's not moist because you overcooked it. Carryover cooking is a big deal. People cook food to a certain temperature and they feel that they have to cook it to that temperature. Chicken is the only thing that you want to cook to the temperature of 160, 165 because that's when the bacteria is really dead. Even with chicken though, there's a certain thing called carryover cooking. So as the temperature of the meat or with the flame raises, or however, whatever you're cooking on, as it raises, that means that product is going to cook to that. And so if you put a thermometer in there and it says the chicken is at 160, you can probably bet your bottom dollar that when you take it off, it's still going to be super hot and the temperature is going to carry over, meaning it'll help raise to 165 and your chicken won't be safe to eat. Well, that's the same thing with fish, chicken, shrimp, scallops, anything that you're cooking. You don't want to cook it until it's like rubbery because then you still have even carryover cooking, which means that product is still cooking. So Pam wanted to know how to cook her salmon. And what I want you to notice here is that I'm preheating my pan here, my sauteed pan, and what I'm trying to do is buy time because I want it to be really hot, but I don't want it to be screeching hot where it's going to immediately burn my salmon, but I do want the contact of the salmon and the pan to make a good contact and have that sizzle effect and for it to caramelize this flesh part. So here's my salmon. I patted it dry. I didn't buy a fillet. I just let the grocery store do this for me today. I was not about to sit here and fillet a whole salmon, but there are no pin bones and it's a pretty nice piece of meat here. And what I do is pat it dry because we don't want water, extra water, to go into the pan. That's going to be an adverse effect of the sizzle that we're after. But I do, prior to cooking, I do salt my salmon. What happens here is Salt, as you know, draws out water. So as the salt infuses the salmon, it draws out the water, and this is going to help make a great caramelization. So I'm also going to put a little pepper on here because I'm eating this for real, y'all. When this is over with, yep, I'm going to eat it. Only thing y'all not going to see me do here is make my lemon butter dill sauce that I'm going to put on top of this. But for this, I'm going to show you the salt on here, and typically I do this at least 5 and let this sit for 5 to 7 minutes so the actual salt can seep into and then the water can come up. But for this video, you've seen it. We're going to pretend the time has elapsed and that my pan is super hot, which it feels super hot. And you put your fat in the skillet, whatever fat you're using. I use olive oil, and I can tell that it's hot because immediately the oil rolls away. Okay, I probably shouldn't have did that because this is connectivity and it's noticing that the pan wasn't on there. All right. So I know it's super hot and it's ready, and I'm just going to add my fish. If you want to put your fat to have, you want it to be butter, you can add butter in here. If you want to add canola or vegetable or whatever you cook with, I just happen to use, hopefully y'all can hear that, right? So just a gentle placing of the fish. And the problem that most people have is at this point, they want to poke and prod and test and lift and see. You don't want to do that. You want to actually just let that sit there and let the heat do its thing. Now, I see that it's getting brown and it's cooking very well. I'm going to turn my heat down just a little bit because what I don't want to happen is I don't want the sides to start producing a lot of white, I don't know, it's protein that's coming out. If it does, it just means your pan is a little bit too hot, and I don't want that to happen because I want it to cook all the way through. Depending on how you like your salmon, I do like my salmon at like a medium cooked salmon, medium well. I don't like it dry. I do like it flaky, and plus when I add the sauce on there, I let that sit in the pan, and so that cooks a little bit more. So we let it cook on that side. Typically, I let it go at least a minute and a half to 2 minutes until it cooks on one side, and then I do the same thing for the other side. For this particular size of salmon, it's not really large. It's not that thick either. A secret, if you're really impatient, is to, and if you can't stand to be near the fish and not touch it, is let it at least cook for a minute and a half, 2 minutes on one side. When you flip it, throw it into a preheated oven of 350 degrees for 4 to 6 minutes, and then you talk about perfect fish every single time. That's definitely perfect every single time. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to flip my fish over. I'm going to flip my fish over. And as you can see, that is nice and golden and has a nice crust on it. And I didn't poke it and prod it a whole bunch of times. Let it sit for the other side for about 2 minutes and let the other side cook as well. And you can even see on the sides that it doesn't have a whole bunch of white protein running out because it's not extremely hot, but it is pretty hot there. That's going to be a nice piece of fish. Now, when you get ready to store the fish, you want to just make sure you let it come all the way down to a cooling temperature, and then you just wrap it up like you do anything else. And the next day when you get ready to enjoy it, I like to heat everything up in the oven if I have time. Microwave is obviously going to overcook a piece of fish. So if you can spare the time to heat it up in the oven, I sprinkle a little bit of water over it, and I keep it covered with a piece of foil so all the moisture stays inside. That is going to help you, and that is going to be your tip to keep that fish or steak or chicken moist when you get ready to reheat it the next day. Well, I want to say thanks for watching again, guys. That is the Thanksgiving tips I have for you today, answering 4 subscriber requests, and they all were pretty much simulated around Thanksgiving. So I hope that helps out on your Thanksgiving preparation. We have so much to be thankful for. Enjoy this time with your family and your friends, and you guys be safe. Until next time, bye.